Hi again, everybody. Dave Stevens here, kicking off with our buddies that we got all over the place. Two of them in Minnesota, and our guest today used to play for the Minnesota Twins. And I want to bring in Troy. Troy Geary is here. We got Will Stein. Hi, guys. What's going
What's
on in
up?
Minnesota today?
Nice
It's
day out
nice
today.
and warm. I wish I was at the golf course right now, but hopefully I'll get around to golfing soon, fellas.
Well, we'll get some golf in after this thing. Maybe you guys can get out, but I got to bring him in. Of course, joining us today is one of my favorite Twins when I was in Minnesota, and he was also happened to be the 1995 Rookie of the Year, Marty Cordova, joining us from Las Vegas, where he has been inducted into I think it's the South Las Vegas Hall of Fame. But Marty, thanks for joining us today, and it's great to have you here. Does it feel like you were Rookie of the Year like 800 million years ago?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. It really is when you start saying like 1995. It's just a long time ago now. Time flies. But yeah, it's not even my baseball career seems like another lifetime ago.
And you had a great career. You had the opportunity to play with some legends in Minnesota with Kirby Puckett, Chuck Knobloch, and those kind of things. So, what were those early years like, going from Elizabethton all the way to the major leagues, and really just exploding in 1995 as a five-tool player?
Sure, I'll make it brief because it's a pretty long story. But as when I started playing baseball, especially in the minor leagues, I came off of Steve Sax syndrome. So when I went to UNLV, I actually quit the team because I couldn't even play catch warm-ups during before the practices. I got it playing in a USA versus Japan thing in high school, and when I was 18, and it just never, or 17 actually, and just never went away. That being said, when the Twins drafted me, they drafted me as a shortstop or third baseman. I threw one on top of the clubhouse, and they're like, "Give him outfielder's mitt. He's no longer an infielder." And that being said, it just seemed like the major leagues was a long ways away. I had a scholarship to go to USC, so I really wanted to go there. So the Twins offered me like 46,000 for tuition for 2 years. So there really was no reason not to try. So I ended up signing at like 1 in the morning before I was going to Cape Cod, the Wood Bat League. And I signed, and I'm like, look, okay, all right, I'll sign. All right, whatever. It was that. That's how I signed. It wasn't like, yeah, fanfare and first round pick. It was really 1 o'clock in the morning as I was getting up at 6 to get on a plane for Boston. So that was how it really started. So to answer your question, is that like Elizabethan days, it was fun, and I was there. I had really, really long hair, like down to past my shoulders, earrings. People thought I was kind of a loose cannon, but I just really baseball was something I enjoyed playing, but I didn't really think of it as a career until I started to further move up. And then in 1991, I played in Visalia with Steve Little, who was the coach there, and they'd done a documentary they were doing on the team. And I really didn't. I worked out a little bit, but I really wasn't into working out. I just really honestly wanted to move on in my life. I wanted to be an orthoscopic surgeon. I was into medicine more and healing athletes more than actually being an athlete. And he's like, look, I'm being serious. You got one season left, maybe. You better go home and get in shape and take this seriously. So I took that to heart. I went home and really started working out, started dieting, changing the whole way I looked at it, and said, let me just give it one more shot, because I knew I had some tools, but I just had to put it together with some actual, some passion and some commitment. So that being said, that I went into a serious routine. I was the first person to the park, last person to leave from that point forward, and then I just kind of stepped up to double A, triple A, and then the major leagues. And it was really didn't seem like, oh, you're going to the major leagues. It just almost seemed like that was the next proper step in the path of my life at that point.
Okay, 1994, baseball just coming off the strike. Going in that 95 season, you were in AAA. And then Shane Mack decided he didn't want to wait out the strike and decided to go to Japan. When that happened, did you feel like you had a great shot of making the team? And of course, long story short, you made the team and was a starting left fielder. So can you kind of talk about that experience, and then from going in that season, and then when Shane Mack left, the opportunity that presented yourself there?
Sure, that's a good question, Troy. Actually, to me, I just really, and I've been blessed my whole life. I've been off track, somehow got on track, been really off track, got back on track, and cards just seem to fall into place for me. I've been really super fortunate, and I say that a lot. Is AAA had a great season, and that was the OJ thing. We went on strike. There was all these things going on, and then I didn't know. I knew I was supposed to be called up, but couldn't because of the strike. Then the next season, we had replacement players and all this stuff going on, and didn't know where I'd be. I just knew that I'd have a shot to make the team. But like you said, we had Shane Mack there, who's a great guy and a great player, and he was just it's hard to get ahead of one of these guys that's making good money. They're quality players and have proven it. So it was fortunate that he was able to sign. I think he got a 4-year, $16 million offer from Japan, and it was at that point that was crazy amount of money. So he decided to take it, which opened the left field position for me. Now, that being said, when I went to spring training that year, I think everybody knew that it was my job to lose. That being said, Tom Kelly is a whole nother conversation. He's a great guy, but he's a very hard-nosed dude that likes to test you and to test your mettle. And so I think that spring training, I'm not even joking. Normally, once you establish yourself, you ease in. You don't go on the road a couple of trips here and there. You play 3 or 4 innings the first few games, then they kind of break you in. Thank God I was in really good shape when I came to spring training and baseball shape, because I played every inning of every game that entire spring training. I don't even think I came out for 1 inning. I had like almost 170 at bats or something in spring training. It was crazy. But Tom Kelly really wanted to make sure that I was ready for the major leagues at that point.
So in that 95 season, you had the pleasure of playing with Kirby Pocket, and how he's been a legendary Twin his whole career. What did you learn from Kirby Pocket that season that you still have with you today?
I think one of the biggest things about Kirby, and it may sound stupid or trite, but he just really had fun. He was such a happy guy. He just loved playing baseball. And that was something that I really got as I've grown much older now. Life lessons is you need to have passion in your life, and you need to have something that makes you want to get out of bed. And Kirby was just, he couldn't wait to be at the field. He was there, like me and him were racing to see who was at the field first. He might have to leave earlier than me, but he was so, just loved the game, always smiling, always laughing, always enjoying it. And he had told me too, he's like, this game's going to go by fast. Enjoy it while you can. Appreciate what you're doing, and make the most of it. And a funny story is, I was a rookie, and I was batting 4th behind Kirby. That's a lot of pressure. You got to hit behind him. You got to make sure he doesn't get walked every time I come up. And part of the breaking in process of a rookie, that year was only me and Brad Radke were rookies, I believe. I think Eddie Guardado had already passed the rookie status at that point. But he was like, look, here's my Louis Vuitton bag. This is a huge bag. You could put a body in it. And he's like, I want this bag on the plane and off the plane every trip we go. I don't want to have to tell you again. I want to turn around and see my bag. I want to see you. And he goes, and rookies are to be seen and not heard. And I'm like, yes, sir. No problem. So, and I swear to God, I think he put quarters in the bag because it really literally weighed over 100 pounds. And I think he might have done that just to mess with me, but it was all in good fun. It's part of the bonding process in baseball. And in the clubhouse, we become family, 25 guys. You spend a lot of time together. So you do all these things just to build a camaraderie and to make your team closer. Because that's how any team I've ever been on that's won has been a good group of guys that really care about each other and not so much into individual performance.
Well, Marty, I remember that 95 season, and then you were with Puck in 96 as, we got the glaucoma, and at the time they didn't know if he was going to play. What was that like for him, when you were around him in 96 and you exploded with your statistics, but Puck was with you guys but wasn't playing? What was that like to go through, to watch one of the greatest players demise overnight?
Yeah, it was sad. It was really sad because he still had a lot of years ahead of him. And I remember he came in spring training, and he had said he started seeing like a black dot in his eye, which kept growing. And I can't imagine the fear of somebody. It's one thing to lose your eye, and we can all live without an eye. But if you're an athlete at the top of your profession like he was, and still in his prime, that's scary to feel like my career could be ending. And then they said it was glaucoma, and a lot of people, Sid was saying that it might have been Dennis Martinez hit him in the mouth at the very last at bat of the last season, but that really had nothing at all to do with it. But people didn't know, and everybody was obviously very concerned. And it was disheartening to see a guy like that just kind of, you could see his whole future just pulled away from him. And he embraced it. He took it as best he could, and he was going to be a part of the team and be there to support the guys. And they let him be on as like a advisor to the front office, and he just was still a great guy to be around. But we really missed him on the field. You can't replace a guy like Kirby.
Yeah, he was such a legend, and just, I got to be around him and be part of the 87 and 91. In fact, I broke out my old Twins jersey today, which is, the official one, because I got to do Kent Herbeck's retirement video. But, of all the places that you went, Marty, in Cleveland and Baltimore, like, was Minnesota your favorite? Again, it's Midwest. People are fun. I loved my time there. What is your best memories of where you played?
Yeah, Minnesota was great because it's where I started. I was drafted by the Twins, came up through the minor leagues with them, became great friends with all the guys that we kind of came up together. So that was awesome, and the people in Minnesota are great. Midwest people are awesome. There's no doubt about that. The only thing I didn't like about Minnesota was how cold it was, but we did play in the Metrodome, and that's a whole nother story of how bad it was to play there, losing balls. The facility wasn't really a great baseball or football facility for that matter. But yeah, I really enjoyed playing my time in Minnesota. But to be honest, the best season, the best time I ever had was when I played with Cleveland, and that was because we won and we got to the playoffs, and that's what every athlete wants to do is win. It's great to be a Major League Baseball player, but it's no fun when you're losing and the fans are mad at you. You're mad at yourself. You let your team down at times. It's just not fun, and it kind of snowballs. And you try to act like you're not 20 games under 500, but you are. And it's playing with Cleveland. On the other hand, we were actually on the right side of Minnesota. We'd come into town, and I'd get a chance to face these old teammates and win. And that was a really cool experience. It's camaraderie, but then it's also, now they're on the other team. So it was an interesting experience. But to answer your question, Cleveland was probably my best place to play because the stadium was beautiful. One of my favorite stadiums. The fans were amazing. They sold out every game. They were there. They supported us. And so I'd say, yeah, winning is always the best thing.
And before Troy jumps in, New York Yankees hat? Am I seeing correct? You're wearing a Yankees hat?
I'm not even a Yankee fan at all. Actually, I could have had the chance to play for them, and I believe it was 2000, and they did win the World Series that year. But I ended up breaking my rib in spring training with Boston, and then I ended up signing with Toronto because the Toronto GM had told my agent that I'd play more there, and Brian Cashman had told my agent that I would be the fifth outfielder, and it could end my career if I went to New York. But that being said, that's like within the first month, all of their outfielders were hurt in New York. That I know I would have played, but whether I would have done well or not, who knows? But I might have had a ring, might not. But you can't really worry about that. But the reason I'm wearing the hat is I just wanted a black hat that has this vending in the back. Go to any store, Lids, wherever it may be, and try to find one of these hats in any other team besides the Dodgers and the Yankees. It's impossible. So I just wanted a black hat, and I'm like, I don't care. People all the time say, "You a Yankee fan?" I'm like, "We're Yankee fans." They'll tip their hat to me, and I'm like, not really a Yankee fan. I just like the hat, and the colors is what I wanted. So yeah. That's why I'm wearing it.
Interesting story. You made your major league debut at Fenway Park. Speaking about iconic stadiums, how intimidating was that to look behind you and see that green monster?
That's a funny story here. Is that was our first. It was in the middle of the season, so we where they picked up the schedule was it was a Sunday day game when we would have played Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday. So we had a day game there. Then we went back to Minneapolis, and I can't even explain to you the amount of pressure that's on you when you're in a situation like that as a rookie. Your first game in the major leagues at Fenway, sold out, fans are crazy. Marty, you're and they're calling you every name in the world, and I was so nervous, and I was trying to tell myself, "You're fine. This is another game. Don't worry about it." My eyelid kept shaking, and it was uncontrollably like spasming, and I'm like, "What's going on with me?" It's stress and pressure is a real thing, and so then I we got beat like 8-0. Erickson didn't pitch a great game. Boston was a monster team at that point. I don't know if Pedro was pitching or who, but I do remember this. I only got 3 at bats, but I believe it was my 3rd at bat. I got up there and I was super nervous the whole game. I just wanted to make contact, hard contact. I just hit it hard and hope something good happens. And I was, say, 1 ball, 1 strike, and I swung and missed. And I was so nervous again. I threw the bat up in the stands. It slipped out of my hand. It went behind the batter's box, about 10 rows up in Fenway. So now I'm walking over there like a freaking idiot. And back then they didn't have a couple bats waiting in the on deck circle like they do now. So I'm like, the fans are yelling at me, and I'm like, I need the bat. I got one more. It's struck one more. It's not strike 3 yet. So finally they hand the bat down. I walk back up there, that long walk from the on deck circle to the plate. Of course, the next pitch I swing, miss, and now I have to take that really long bat, walk back to the dugout as the fans are just wearing me out. And I'm like, it was actually, I was just glad to get on the plane and get out of there and get that first game under my belt.
Cool. No, you mentioned Pedro. Speaking of Pedro, who's the toughest pitcher that you went against, and what made that pitcher so tough when you
It would
faced
be
him?
Pedro. It would be Pedro because I think I was 0 for like 23 off of him in my career, something like that, 0 for 20 something, but it was a lot of at bats. And it was just because I was one of those players that thought I sometimes I would try to be too smart, and I'd say, well, I know he's going to throw this. He's probably going to throw that. He's going to throw that. So instead of just sitting on a fastball outside and adjusting, I would just try to guess because he would throw any pitch at any count. So 2-0, I'd say, oh, he's going to throw a changeup, and he'd throw a fastball right down the middle. I'm like, what am I doing? What? So anyway, this game kept going on, and plus the guy can throw his fastball inside, outside, spot it, up, down. He can sink it, he can cut it. Then he has a changeup that he can throw in or out, curveball in or out, up or down, and also a slider that he could locate all of these pitches. So when you got a guy that can locate like this, and then have the amazing stuff that he had, I mean, a lot of players would say he's their toughest pitcher.
Marty, as we take a look at some of your career highlights and everything, I'm just curious as far as, there's a lot of folklore out there about stories in your career, and I know one of those was this legendary you got injured in a tanning bed, and it's folklore. And again, I've been in the media for a long time, and a lot of times one person will tell a story and then it becomes supposedly true, and I'd like you to refute it. I know it's funny, but it's not funny when it's not true. It's like being accused of something you didn't do, and then they go ha ha ha. So can you clear up this stupid story and just set the record straight?
Sure, yeah. I've got super thick skin, and obviously that season proved that. It probably is what developed my thick skin that I have now. Is so I have a very thick beard in my neck and on my face, and so I have a friend who's a plastic surgeon here in Vegas. And this is a long time ago, I think 20 some years ago, and my suit and things were scratching my neck. I was getting ingrown hairs on my neck. It was just driving me crazy. So he's like I got a laser hair removal. I can thin out that beard a little bit for you. It'll make it where it's not so ingrown hair, so much irritation from your clothes. And I said, sure, I'll try it. So I flew home from a game in Baltimore on a day off. Veteran players are allowed to travel without the team. And I had this procedure done. And when I was done, my face was like burned, like really bright red. And I said to him, this is like hurts. He's like, oh, don't worry about it. And when I went home, I took a nap. When I woke up, I had the size of nickel water blisters, because a laser head is like the size of a nickel, all over my face, dot, 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 dot. It was, I looked in the mirror and I didn't know what to do. I was panicking because I'm like, I got to play a baseball game tomorrow. What the hell is going on here? This guy's damaged my face. I thought I would never look the same. Then they started to dry out and turn black, and it looked like cigars were put out all over my face. And then I went to the field that day and went right into the trainer's room, and people were like, what the hell happened to your face? And people were talking this and that and innuendos, and I just didn't want to talk about it. I'm like, it's not important. Don't worry about it. Because I didn't want to get the guy in trouble for doing this. It was my stupidity to do it, and then so me just wanting to not have such a thick beard caused me this burns all over my face. And then people said it was a tanning bed, and I'm like, if you fell asleep in a tanning bed, how would you have no burn anywhere except your beard and the back of your neck? That doesn't even make sense. It's not possible. And so that story just went, and there was, once it started, there was no way to stop it. And the more you deny things, the more people think it's true. So I just said, what am I going to do? There's nothing I can say to even if I went and said, look, how could this be a tanning bed? It's my beard. Who the hell tans in a tanning bed and only tans your beard? It's not possible. But I just said, I'm not going to bother dealing with this. And then every stadium I went to that whole season, the season was not even half through, that's all I heard. Stay out of the tanning bed. Jim Rome was relentless. He kept making fun of me. To this day, I really don't like Jim Rome. And there's been a couple opportunities when I was with Dana that I wanted to confront him. And then he begged, please don't do this. Please don't confront him. Because for many, many years, I just dreamed about the chance to confront him, because all he was doing was wearing me out for years. I mean, years, even after I retired, he'd still talk about it and make fun of me. But, again, it's like, it's just something that happened in life, and misunderstandings and stories get made up. And unfortunately, I was the brunt of the tanning bed incident that never happened, but it's no big deal. I'm 53. I survived it.
Marty, I hate Jim Rome personally because, again, I was born without legs, but I played minor league baseball in '96 in St. Paul for the Saints. I don't know if you remember that. I was teammates with Strawberry and Morris, and Jim Rome picked on me and said this guy without legs was a joke. He's a cripple. He shouldn't be playing. And I've held that every time I see him at the Super Bowl. I still hate that man. I don't like what he did. I don't like what he did with with the Chris Everett situation, how he always ambushed people, making fun of them. But let's get back to the fun. Troy, you can pick us up.
Sure.
Okay, like I talked to you previously off camera, and we had Mike Trombley on last week, and you wanted me to bring up the clubhouse games at Pluck. And, like he told us all kinds of cool stories. What do you most remember about those clubhouse games? He brought up the game Bourré. He also said that you used to do, you were the king of one-liners in the clubhouse, and Tom Kelly, who never really smiled a lot, and you got him to crack a smile or two while you were there. Can you kind of talk about those fun times in the clubhouse and on the road? And
Sure. Well, I'll tell you a story about TK real quick because I forget it. But yeah, we were in Detroit, I believe. It was a tiny little locker room there, and guys all play cards, and we'd form teams, and we'd call them the whatever it may be, the three-headed monster, the da 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 da. So we were playing cards, doing this, and TK was in the locker room with us, and he's like, "Hey, you guys, hey, you three guys there." It was me, Stahoviak, and Steve Dunn. And he's like, "Why don't you combine your batting averages and call yourself the 600 Club?" Ha! He thought he was funny. And I said, "Well, why don't you call yourself the 122 Club?" Because that's what his batting average was. And then everybody was like, "Oh," and then he was like, "Hey, that's why I'm coaching." So I tried to bust him up as much as I could because we went at it numerous times. There's a story that I have with him about home runs that was hit in Seattle. It's a longer story. If you guys have time, I'll tell you it if you want to hear it. But it wasn't a very good story. Do you want to hear the story? It takes a couple minutes, but TK would always rag players and get on them. And Thompson, who was a pitcher, left-handed pitcher for Detroit, was coming to town, and he would do things like this all the time. I was always the first one to the field, and on my locker was hanging Marty Cordova versus Thompson, 0 for 8, 5 strikeouts. Good luck. And I'm like, motherfucker. He was always doing things like that to try to, like, because I'm a very mellow person and low key, and he would try to fire me up and get me mad. And I'm like, I'm not motivated by embarrassment or by yelling at me. That doesn't motivate me at all. But he continued to try to do that. So I was going through a really rough time, and he had me out in batting practice early in the Metrodome. It's very cold in there. It was like 1 o'clock, and it's me, him, and Terry Crowley, who's like my second dad. I love him. He's the best.
Crow.
And the Crow, he's awesome. So we're there, and Crow's like, "Marty, just relax, stay calm, just do this, get your best work out of this." So TK's pitching, and he actually threw really good batting practice and pretty firm pitches because he was a pitcher, I believe.
Better than
well.
Stelly. He was a better thrower than Stelly was.
Oh, Stelly was the worst. Stelly could break your bat with the best of them. He was the worst, but he's a great guy too. And this story involves Stelly too. So he's throwing. He gets in there, and it's 1 o'clock. Nobody there. We got the cage. He throws the first pitch. I'm not even loose. I really didn't loosen up. I foul it into the cage sideways, and he looks at me, and I'm like, "Okay." He throws the next one. I foul it into the cage. He looks at me. He gives me this look, and I'm like, "Okay, throw it." And he throws the next one, and I foul it up again. And he's like, "Come here." I'm like, "Oh my God." I'm like, "Crow, I'm going to kill him. I'm serious." So he calls me out there, and he's like, I've never told this story to anybody in public before, but I tell a lot of my friends this. He's like, "Look, do yourself a favor. Do your family a favor. Do your friends a favor. Do the city of Minneapolis a favor. Do Major League Baseball a favor. Go walk upstairs, go to your locker, get your uniform, fold it up nice and neat, and retire. Do yourself a favor and quit this game." But he said a lot of other words in there too that really infuriated me. And I'm like, if he was a regular, like the guy my age, we would have been on. We'd have been fighting. And I'm like, steam was coming out of my ear. So I'm like, "Go back to the King." Crow's like, "Calm down." Next pitch, of course, he throws it. I hit a home run. He's like, see, put your heart into it. That's how you hit. Put your heart into it. I'm like, oh my God. So he said, "You're not going to play for these 3 home games, and then we're going to go to Seattle, and you're going to play. I want you to do extra BP every day, and then we're going to go there." And I was furious with him because we had been back and forth for years. And we get to Seattle, and he's like, "You're going to play." So I think it was my second at bat. I hit a home run. As I come around the bases, everybody lines up for high fives, and I high five everybody. And then TK's in line, and he goes to high five him, and I go to high five him, and I whoop under his high five, and then I go to high five the next guy, and it was Stelly, but I missed him because I was dogging out TK. And so then the whole rest of that game, he was just sitting with steam coming out of his ears. He was so mad at me. And we ended the game. I'm not sure what happened with the score, but we go in the locker room, and he runs up to me in the locker room. He's like, "Listen, you blank, blah, 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 blank," a lot of cuss words. "I don't care that you don't like me. I don't like you either, blah, blah, blah." He goes, "But Stelly's a great guy, and he pulls for you. And that's so rude that you missed him." And I'm like, "I didn't mean to miss him. I only meant to miss you. I love Stelly. Forget this. It's all about you." And then we argued a little bit, and then he went back in his locker room, his coach's office, and took a fungo and like just destroyed the room with the fungo, hitting everything with it. And then the traveling secretary, he told me, he's like, man, what happened? He goes, he walked home from the field. He goes, he's never done that before. He goes, he's really mad at you. And I'm like, yeah, it's a long story, but so that's sorry for the long story, but that was a pretty funny TK story, how we did get under each other's skin. But anyway, back to the Trombley thing, and I'm sorry I'm talking so much, you guys. Is Mike and I were very good friends. We were very competitive. He's a really smart guy, a Duke dude, and I'm very good at math, very good with numbers, and my memory is great. So together in these card games, we just absolutely destroyed everybody, and we would just antagonize everybody. Every card game, anything, we'd beat them. We would have tournaments for pluck, and we made even this championship belt, like a WWE belt, and we would carry the belt around, and it was just a lot of fun. We because you got to remember, we get to the field early. You take batting practice at home, then you have like 2 or 3 hours to wait while they take batting practice before you even go to do infield outfield. And sometimes we didn't do that, and then you'd go to the game. So you had to do something for 2 or 3 hours. You can't work out the whole time or do, so everybody played cards, and became a serious competition and a bonding thing for every team does it. Sorry for that rant.
That's all right.
So,
go ahead, Will.
So what was the toughest injury that you had to recover from? I know you talked about the burn on your face and that sidelined you for a little bit, but what was the toughest injury that you recovered from, and what gave you that positive peace of mind knowing that you could recover from that to make yourself better for your, not just during your playing days, but post-playing days as well?
Sure. Well, let me just say one thing about the face thing, the burns. That night I played. The next night I played, and the next night I went 4 for 5 with a homer and like 2 doubles. And then the next day was a day game, and then Mike Hargrove's like, "What? I'm not playing you." And I'm like, oh, "Yes, you are." And he's like, "No, I'm not playing you. It's a day game. Your face is terrible looking." Because I don't want you out in the sun like that. Because just you're not playing. And we got it. Not an argument. He's such a good guy. I just didn't want this to become a media thing, and sure enough, it did. I didn't play that game, and then that's when Jim Rome's like, "Marty Cordova's on fire." When I mean on fire, he's literally on fire. So it just started that, because the media then, of course, says I missed a game because of that, which I didn't. I was set that game not because I couldn't play, because I wouldn't be played. So anyway, I don't want to dwell on that, but that was not even an injury. It was just more of an embarrassing thing that I went through. It didn't have any effect on my ability to play. But what did, I've had Tommy John surgery, I've had ankle surgery, I've had, surgeries, but the worst thing that happened to me was in '96 at the very end of the season. I recall this clearly. I was running for a home run, and I used to wear spikes on the Metrodome, even though it was really hard turf, because I just didn't feel comfortable in anything but spikes. And I stopped really hard on the warning track, and my heel hit my left heel, and it just was really a hard, violent way I stomped. And then that started my plantar fasciitis. And the next off season, I went home, and Dana, at that point, Dana White was training Floyd Mayweather Jr. And so he then said, "I'll train you as like a boxer so that we can just get into really good shape." The twins had to sign off on it. I wasn't going to fight. I was just going to train. And if I sparred, it would be just with Dana and not with anybody where I could get hurt. And so that pounding, I'd do 3 minutes on, 30-second rest for 2 hours at a time. My foot started to just turn black. And then by spring training, I could hardly ever walk. And then that was an injury that stayed with me for 2.5 years before. Now my left arch is completely flat. So a lot of people don't know, because I don't talk about much about my career or anything, but that injury stopped me from being able to run. It hurt my range in the outfield quite a bit, because I wasn't as fast as I used to be. So it did have a big impact on my game. But it was just, there was some games where I didn't care how I did. I just wanted to get off my feet, because it hurt so bad to be standing with plantar fasciitis. And then again, like I said, finally after about 2.5 years, it tore completely flat, and then I didn't have any pain anymore.
Marty, you talked about Dana White helping you, and I've seen you at UFC events, but there's a funny story, and I don't know if you want to tell it, about you had to go somewhere for UFC and you forgot your passport, and Dana's just been giving you grief ever since. I mean, you played in Toronto, so you need your passport, or I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit about that and your relationship.
This is again another story of something that's completely blown out of proportion and not the truth, because again, Dana is a character. We've been friends since we've been like 12 years old. So I've been friends for over 40 years with him. We spend the night at each other's house when we're little. We have a great history, and he's a super smart aleck. And what happened was, of course, I know that you need a passport to get into Toronto, but that had just changed a few years before we went. You just used to need a driver's license to get into Canada. And I fly private with him many times. He's lucky enough that he gets to fly private. So I'm always very early because I don't know when he's going to show up early or not. But if he's there, he's going to leave whether I'm there or not. So I'm like, I got to be there early. So let's say it was 2 o'clock. We were departing. I got there at 12. This flight attendant, sweetheart, Kaya, sorry. I said, oh, I left my passport at my house. I said, I should go grab it. I got time. And she's like, don't worry about it. We got a copy of it here. And she went into the pilot and said, his passport's at home. He said he'll drive home, but we're not sure about the timing if Dana's going to get here. Is that good enough? And the pilot's like, sure. Yeah, it's no problem. It shouldn't be a problem at all. So I could have, and of course, we were supposed to leave at 2. We didn't leave till 3 because he usually is late. So that being said, I had plenty of time to go home and get this. And then, of course, Dana was doing his vlogs, very beginning of the UFC. Not the beginning, but when he started his vlog. And then, of course, he can edit the way he wants. And then he's like, if you've seen the vlog we're talking about, he's like, what kind of a blah, 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 forgets his passport, blah, because he then can manipulate this to make me look like an idiot, which I didn't care. I laugh about it. I don't care. And then he's looking at my passport picture because he has the picture, and it is a pretty bad picture. He's like, would you let this guy in your country? No way. I just kept going and going. So yeah, we're good friends, and I know this is what he does, and he likes to, we bust each other up and make fun of each other all the time. So it's all good fun.
Yeah, you talked about your relationship with Dana White, and you've been to many fights. What is your most memorable fight that you have attended in the last 10 years or so?
Man, I've been to hundreds. I'm not joking, hundreds. I really have been. I've been. People think I work for the UFC all the time. They're like, "Hey, can you help my son get a job? Can you do?" I'm like, I just am a friend. I may be around a lot, but I don't have nothing to do with the running of the business. But that being said, a lot of the fights have been amazing. One of the most the coolest fights that I'll remember was obviously the Conor McGregor and Habib fight, because obviously what happened, but was really cool fight. They jumped in the stand. It was what you didn't expect. Everybody thought Conor was going to destroy him. It was an amazing fight. But a cool thing was the front row of the arena there there were seats they were fold out chairs, but they had pictures of both of them, and their eyes were different colors. It was a really cool chair. And there was only maybe like a couple hundred or maybe 100 made. And I was able to get one of those. And that's one of the cool things I have. I have very few memorabilia that I have. Muhammad Ali signed a boxing glove to me, personalized it to me. It was one of the last signatures he signed. He came into the Cleveland locker room, got to meet him, and he signed it to Marty. It was really cool. I got Paul Molitor's like 9 millionth double that was set a record, and he signed that to me. He gave me his 2,991st ball, and it has a little plaque and stuff. So there's a few things that I've had from playing with some of these great players that I cherish. I don't collect things just to collect them. I collect things that only have a real personal meaning to me.
So, speaking of personal meaning, I know you've had a great career. Started off at the bang, winning the AL Rookie of the Year in 1995. What would you say is your favorite career memory from your baseball career?
Wow, I've never really thought about like one moment that would be above all, because there's just so many good moments. There's a lot of negative and there's a lot of positive, and there's actually, obviously, you guys know, a lot more negative. It's if you fail 70% of the time, you're the Hall of Famer. So I would say it's got to be either maybe my first home run or first hit. My first hit was off Ben McDonald, and my first home run was off Tom Gordon. That's when he was with Kansas City. So those were two memorable moments. There are just so many. Getting in the playoffs, being in the playoffs, it was just an amazing experience. Playing with Kirby, I guess there's just too many to think of one. I would have to probably take a little more time to think about one that really stood out.
Well, we're watching some of them, and again, you have quite an impressive resume in your career, and we're so glad that you joined us today. And as we wrap up, Marty, I know you've been involved with some online media things and things in life. So, what is Marty Cordova doing these things to entertain himself? And where can we follow you? How can we see what you're doing? Or should we just leave you alone?
No, that's okay. I don't mind anybody talking to me. So when I retired, I bought commercial properties and industrial properties as I was playing. So I was in that land development, and then in 2000, I want to say 12, me and two other guys started a company called Bent Pixels, a social media company. and a digital media company. And it evolved, like Joe Rogan would be an example of one of our first clients. And we managed his YouTube properties as far as rights management. If somebody was using his podcast, which a lot of people do, they'll copy his podcast, put it on their cell phones, try to make money for a few minutes. And then it was our job to find these videos, claim them, and then the revenue that came from those videos would come back to my company. I'd rev share back with Joe. And then in some instances, Joe would say, I don't like the way he's using my content. I want it pulled down, or somebody was trying to represent them as the real Joe Rogan. So a lot of times I would have to make it like, I'd get a hold of them and say, look, you need to put fan page on here or I'm taking your channel down. Because the tool that YouTube gave us was the ability to take any channel on YouTube down with 3 copyright strikes. It's a very powerful tool and it can be misused. But that being said, that tool, myself and another gentleman, we developed software through our tech team in Krakow, Poland, to make that tool even better. And along with that other software, we developed our competitors along the way, thought it was better to license that from us than to actually develop it themselves and maintain it. So we spun off our company Event Pixels into Paladin Software and separated those companies. And then, long story short, this is 12 years ago, we built up to maybe at one point 40,000 channels we represented, and now we've pared it back to about 600 of the top channels that we could acquire. We have all the esports teams in the country, in the world, I guess I should say, and a lot of the podcasters. Joe obviously left for Spotify. We couldn't help that. He got a great offer. I don't blame him. But I was able to sell about 90% of my interest in Event Pixels last December, and then I sold 100% of the Paladin Software close to about a month and a half ago. So these 2 exits were great for me. I'm actually same as proud, or even more proud of my business success after playing baseball than playing baseball, because a lot of times athletes are looked at like they can't run a business, they can't do anything after their career's over. And in some cases that's true, but in a lot of cases there are guys that have been able to put some things together and do some good work. So yeah, that's where I'm at now. Last few months I've just been kind of enjoying time off from that work and traveling a lot. Just got back from Maine for 4th of July weekend. It was amazing, 6 days. So just
You
kind
should
of
have stopped by. I'm here in Connecticut. You should have stopped by and said hi.
If I'd have known you there, maybe. We rode motorcycles and stuff. I don't ride motorcycles. I rode in the car behind them, but we rode all over. It was a great time. So yeah, I'm just kind of enjoying my life now. And I know now that, and this is another topic of conversation, but my whole goal now is to help as many people as I can. Another topic was there's things I went through in my life that were tough things to deal with, and I had some problems with some substances. And now my goal is to try to help other people that are going through these types of things themselves and find a way out of it. So that's a topic for another conversation another day, but that's really my goal now is moving forward, is to help people that are struggling with things that I went through.
Well, I had to throw on my Twins hat because we got to get going. But Marty, thank you so much. Troy, Will, final thoughts?
Appreciate you joining us today. Like I said, we would love to have you on the future if you want to talk about some of those endeavors that you just mentioned.
Sure.
Yeah,
we'd love
pick
to
your brain about what it was.
You guys.
We can pick what it was like to be a teammate of Randy Johnson for a little bit, those kind of things, right?
Gotcha. Anytime, guys. I'd be happy to join you.
All right.
Thanks
Will?
for your time. I appreciate you joining on. I noticed that Raiders shirt that you have on. Do you think how do you think they're going to do with the addition of Devontae Adams?
I think it can only help them. Max Crosby is a guy here that's defensive end that I got to know a little bit. Great guy. And I'm really pulling for the Raiders, really pulling for this team. We've never had really a team here, obviously. So now I'm not necessarily a Raider fan, but I'm a football fan. But now that the Raiders are here, I'm a Raider fan. And I've got season tickets. I can't wait for the season to start. I love football. I played it when I was in high school. I just really enjoy it. So, yeah, I think the Raiders have a good chance to be good, but they're in a really tough division with 3 other really great quarterbacks and some really quality teams. So it's going to be tough, but I'm just hoping they can maybe get 10, 11 wins this year and get in the playoffs like they did last year.
All right, Marty, thanks for taking the time. For Troy, Geary, Will Stein, I'm Dave Stevens. This is Geary, Stein, and Stevens. Continue to follow us on all social media platforms. We're just getting started as a part of Sideline Sports. So until next time, America, we'll see you guys later, and have a great week.
Thanks, guys.